Welcome to Ask Miyazaki. I'm Anthony Miyazaki, and I'm here to answer your questions about marketing, branding, social, digital, whatever questions come my way. Dianne asks, what are some tips on professional branding? Is it important to have social media for employers to know who you are? Dianne, absolutely not. You don't have to have social media. There are a lot of people out there who aren't even on social media. Therefore, you can do all sorts of great things on social and they'll never even know who you are. However, I do think in the future it's valuable to use certain social media platforms, in particular LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you have to use the other ones. You can use those for fun. But for LinkedIn, I would start to try to build that. And the answer to the other question, as far as some tips on building that professional brand, is use LinkedIn. Go in, answer questions that people ask, go in and comment on articles that people have, write your own articles on things that you're building up as your expertise in, and build that brand there. It may not be that you're going to get those jobs directly from there. I've heard people getting jobs directly from LinkedIn, from their profiles, but more likely you're going to make connections, and those connections eventually are going to turn into opportunities, and those opportunities are going to turn into jobs. So my advice, go to LinkedIn, make sure you're on that particular social media outlet or that platform, and then start to build your brand there little by little and making sure that everything you do there is professional and that it's interactive, you're connecting with other people. Ruben asks, what are the best ways to retain audience after the marketing campaign is finished? Awesome question, Ruben. There are a number of ways that you can retain audience after the campaign's finished. But one of the first things I'm going to mention is the campaign is never finished. Not until you make the sale. And even after you make the sale, the campaign goes on. And why do I say that? I understand the whole idea of a marketing campaign, that you have an advertising campaign and it moves forward till a certain time and then you stop that campaign. But the truth is, you're always using that marketing campaign. You're always trying to go in there and not to say you're trying to sell more, but you're trying to continue to build that relationship that you have with the customer. You're always trying to move forward. Now, specifically, when you're talking about an ad campaign or a marketing campaign that does stop, how do you continue that to retain that audience? Well, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to set up that relationship from the beginning so that you have the audience and you have that relationship. It's trying to keep a relationship going, right? You can't keep that relationship going if you don't continue to bring flowers, right? You've got to keep bringing the flowers or whatever it happens to be. You don't do that, and I'm telling you what, the relationship is going to end. So, as a marketer, deliver the flowers over and over and over again. Find out what the needs are of your customers and continue to give them what they need. Whether it's information or entertainment or product or value or service, whatever it happens to be, give them what they want. What else do I have to say to that then? That's pretty much it. Jesselyn asks, how do you develop your brand voice? I really like this question. And I like this question because it's relevant to each one of us. It's relevant because each of us has a brand voice and we have to develop it. And that brand voice is going to change over time. At some point early on, we're going to head in this direction. And then because our expertise changes or our interests change or our opportunities change or whatever it is that changes, we're going to take that brand voice and move it maybe in another direction. The key is to look at the core of that brand voice and the core values of that brand voice. In other words, am I always going to be the type of person who can be counted on, or the type of person who's going to be creative, or the one who's always going to be upfront and excited about what it is that people are going to be doing? Am I going to be the type of person that's always going to support somebody else in what they do? Those are the key elements of our brand voice, and it's important to establish those first. Now, after that, you may start to establish things differently because you're going to have different areas of expertise that you develop. And that areas of expertise, it doesn't mean, I'm not one of those people that believe that you only have these certain strengths and that your weaknesses can never be turned into strengths. I think your weaknesses can be turned into strengths. In fact, it's really not as much about your strengths and your weaknesses initially as it is what you like, what your passions are. And I think of always, there's these two brothers I knew years ago, and they were both artists, incredible artists. And I was always impressed with what they did. And I remember one time I was talking to their mom years later, and I said, those guys, wow, they're so talented and it's just amazing what they can do. And she said, well, you know what? You should have seen them when they were younger. When they were younger, they had no talent whatsoever. They were horrible at what they did, but they loved it. And they would spend hour after hour after hour doing this. 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day drawing. And sure enough, I thought back, and I remember times where I'd see them sitting there, and if they were sitting for more than, say, 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, they'd pull out their notepad. They'd start drawing. A couple years later, they'd pull out the computer, and they would sit there and start drawing on the computer. Why? Because they loved it. They became really good at what they were doing because they had passion for what it was that they were doing. They had passion for drawing, passion for art. Both of them now actually work out in California, and they work for Pixar. Why? Because they had that passion and they developed that talent. The same thing goes with your brand voice. Think about the things that you like to do. Think about what really makes you happy and how you can connect with other people and start to develop your brand voice in that way. Spend the time, spend the effort, and then as you do that, make sure that you communicate that to other people. Make sure that they know that that's who you represent. It's going to change over time, and that's all right. But start to develop that brand voice, and you can do it subtly. You can be direct. You can tell people what you're about. But no matter how much you say what you're about, it's what you do that's going to make the impact. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. I very much appreciate them. Keep the questions coming. Use the hashtag AskMiyazaki on Twitter. If you have not subscribed, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes of the Ask Miyazaki, Marketing Minute, and other videos that are out there. Have a great day.